Small move with Auburn, who went from plus 325 to 3-1 to win it all. Florida, 9-1 to 8-1. And Houston from 9-1 to 8-1 as well. So the trend that I'm seeing is the contenders, all of the odds are shortening because it looks like these teams are moving in the right direction. And I feel like we're going to see this trend continue on as we get closer to the tournament. I would say you bet some of these now, but the only reservation I have is that March Madness is so dependent on matchups sometimes that you need to wait and see the bracket. So my first question is, do you bet on these now or do you wait?
I would wait, honestly, and I'm glad you said that because you took the words right out of my mouth where, okay, all this is well and fine in a vacuum, but the draw matters in such a big way because you're talking about different locations, you're talking about different teams, and sometimes you'll see a team that is, on its way to a number 1 seed or maybe a 2 seed or 3 seed. They have a chance to win it all, but getting to the Final Four is super arduous because of the teams they have to play along the way. And then sometimes there will be a team of all the number 1 seeds or the higher tier seeds, and you'll say, man, that's an easy draw or that's a really difficult draw. And that more than anything else, I think, would affect potentially what I'm going to bet. So it's hard for me to look at this blindly. Of course, we know why these respective teams are talented, but you really need to know who they're going to play in the tournament and where they're going to play potentially, because that matters in a massive way.
Yeah, so some of these maybe you wait, but I will say some of these teams, they're not matchup proof, but they look pretty damn good. Obviously, Auburn is short favorites to win it all for a reason. Just 3-1 over at BetMGM to win March Madness. I feel like those odds are a little too short for me at plus 300. Maybe you take them to make the Final Four, but that's minus 150 as well. So maybe the value's all gone on Auburn. Maybe you just take them against the spread when it comes to their individual games. Let's look at some of these odds to make the Final Four quickly. So Auburn minus 150, Duke minus 120, Houston plus 150, plus 160 for Florida, plus 165 for Alabama. There's a lot of SEC teams that obviously are trending in the right direction going into March. Jenks, do any of these teams stand out to you?
The only bet that I like, and I can see, the committee loves storylines, don't they? I mean, they know, for example, they know that the 5-12 matchup historically is a matchup that ends up being one where we see a couple of upsets each and every single year. It happens every year in their tournament. So on that 5-12 line, they put teams to play against each other that might have an upset or two. They do it each and every single year. I say that because when you take these storylines into account, a guy like Rick Pitino or a Tom Izzo or a Cooper Flagg, these storylines are important to the committee. And that's why we see coaches meeting up against their former teams or a guy that transferred to one team and now he's playing against the other team, if that's possible. All of that is to set up the fact that I like St. John's at 6-1 to make the Final Four. I think they've been super impressive in the Big East. They have a ton of talent. Kadary Richmond has been playing at a super high level all year. You got RJ Luis back in the lineup, and Pitino is a guy who is one hell of a head coach. He's been there. He's done that, and it would not surprise me at all if when we see the bracket come out, all of a sudden St. John's is put in a position where they're facing one of Pitino's old teams, or maybe they have an easier bracket than other teams because it would be such a great story.
Yeah, for sure. And I think some that, again, you wait till the bracket comes out and see kind of where some of those cards lay on the table. But for me to make the Final Four, I think maybe you pepper a few in there. They're a little chalky, but maybe not too far down the page because we've seen this. Like I said, a lot of the winners of March Madness have been these blue blood schools. Obviously, we'll see some Cinderella runs, but most of the time, it's these big schools. Even if you look at the numbers, there is a stat that is usually very helpful at picking some winners. 20 of the last 22 champions in the NCAA tournament since 2002 have ranked in the top 25 of offensive and defensive efficiency, according to KenPom. So what does this tell us? We need a balanced team. You can't be looking at a team that's really great on offense, but lets you down on defense. So I think most
Mm.
of these teams that kind of are around the top of the odds kind of feel that. Like Auburn looks really good, both sides of the ball, number one in adjusted offensive efficiency and 11 and defensive efficiency. You could say the same for Duke. Alabama is one of those teams that normally is a problem on defense. Their defense is actually better this
Yeah.
year. They don't fit that mold. They're 45th in adjusted defensive efficiency, but something to note if you're betting on winners of March Madness. If you're wondering, over at BetMGM on some of these other futures bets, the Wooden Award winner, line movement, open and now, Cooper Flagg, of course, was one of the favorites going into the season. He is now your odds-on favorite at minus 165. Johni Broome of Auburn is plus 130. So let's start there, Jenks. Do you think that Johni Broome still has a chance to win this award?
Yeah, I absolutely think that way for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're seeing it trend that way, right? So
Mm-hmm.
early in the season, Cooper Flagg was a massive minus money favorite, and now slowly those odds are shortening. And I think a lot of that has to do with hype. That plays into it as well. And look, Cooper Flagg is the real deal. So make no mistake, it's not to deny the fact that he's going to be the number one overall pick in the draft. There's no question about it. But Johni Broome is right there. And also, I think this really sets up well for Johni Broome to make a statement down the line. Mike Randall just said in the previous segment, which was a very good point, if you take Johni Broome away from Auburn, Auburn is probably a worse team than Duke. But not only that, Auburn has a more difficult schedule down the stretch. So if you see Johni Broome, because the SEC is so tough this year, which is crazy to think about, but with this difficult schedule in place, if Johni Broome shows out against one difficult SEC opponent after another, all of a sudden, then you're going to see those odds shorten even more because he's doing it against more difficult competition. And we're going to see that hype train for Cooper Flagg probably drop off a little bit more as it's done all season long.
Yeah, Auburn ends the season with 4 straight top 25 matchups. So if Johni Broome continues to put up these type of numbers that he's putting up right now, 18.6 points per game, 11.1 rebounds per game, along with 3 assists, I feel like he got to at least, include him in on the conversation. I know the narratives are probably going to go with Cooper Flagg just because he is so supremely talented, and we know he's had the hype going into the season. But what a story Johni Broome's been. Like, he was not one of these blue chip prospects going into his college career. Like, I remember betting on him when he went to Morehead State. Won me a lot of money down there when I was betting on mid-major basketball. So I'll be rooting for him personally. Nothing against Cooper Flagg. I just kind of like the story with Johni Broome a little bit better. So we'll see how the season ends. I think wins maybe go into it as well. For Auburn, if they can end the year with all 4 of those wins under their belt, I think the gentle nudge maybe goes to Johni Broome.
I think you're probably right. There's a real chance, but if you want to bet this, absolutely bet it now. It's crazy that he opened at 35-1. Like, that's unbelievable. You had to be really in the know. Like, maybe there was someone like you who followed him at Morehead State and who said, you know what? We saw what this guy could do last year. He's going to get even better this year. He's really long. He can do it all. I'll take him at 35-1, but now he's at plus 130. But after a game or two, this could shift, and all of a sudden, Johni Broome is at minus money. So Cooper Flagg and Duke don't have nearly the schedule ahead of them that, like I was saying, that Auburn does. So if you like Johni Broome, this might be the last time to get into plus money. And if you wait 2 or 3 more weeks anyway, it'll probably be decided. So you got to make this decision now.